Welcome back to The Explainer. If you haven't circled June 11th, 2026 on your calendar just yet, well, you might want to grab a pen. We're currently watching a massive convergence of global events hit the supply chain. We're talking everything from a breaking US-China trade deal and escalating tensions in the Middle East, right down to some absolutely disruptive tech shifts in freight and last-mile delivery. Today, we're going to break down these macro-level shocks and translate them directly into what you actually need to know. And to make sense of all this noise, we aren't guessing. We are relying entirely on hard data powered by Pinalytics Executive Intelligence. We're letting the numbers lay out a really clear, actionable 30 to 90-day strategic outlook. Every single story we're covering today demands an immediate, targeted response from your procurement, logistics, and supply chain teams. Okay, let's take a quick look at the agenda. We're going to start with geopolitics and transit risks. Then we'll jump into freight spot rates, tackle the automotive EV chip crisis, and finally, wrap up with e-commerce and AI. Let's dive right in. Starting with Section 1, Geopolitics, focusing specifically on trade and transit risks. Now, look at this giant 30%. The new trade framework announced today includes a 60-day pause on planned higher tariff tiers. Now, I know that sounds like relief, right? But the reality is that a 30% total tariff floor on Chinese imports remains fully in place. If your team is treating this pause as some sort of structural resolution to the trade war, they're seriously misreading the signal. The core cost arithmetic of China origin sourcing hasn't materially improved at all. Let's actually map this out on a timeline. At day 0, today, the deal drops. That 60-day pause, it basically creates a super temporary window for you to lock in dual sourcing contracts or quickly reposition inventory, because on day 60, that window might just slam shut. Meanwhile, China has agreed to address critical rare earth mineral shortages, materials like neodymium and indium that are absolutely vital for EVs and defense. But the data clearly shows those supply improvements are going to lag by at least 90 days before they actually hit your procurement availability. So the relief is delayed, but the ticking clock is happening right now.
And that brings us right into our second major geopolitical risk, US-Iran sanctions. Take a look at this massive financial hit. Tanker insurance premiums for Persian Gulf routing have surged by 35 to 45%. This is absolutely crucial because it inflates the landed cost for any cargo touching the region, not just oil and petrochemicals. This conflict is creating real procurement emergencies across the board, with chemical alternative qualifications currently running 6 to 12 months out.
All right, moving on to Section 2. Let's look at freight, specifically spot rates and capacity. So, structural freight costs are just climbing across the board. Spot rates are up 34% year to date. Why? Well, it's a compounding effect. Diesel fuel surcharges alone are up 28%, and owner-operator attrition means we have significantly fewer independent drivers on the road. At the same time, we're seeing massive market consolidation. The top 3 digital freight brokers now control 42% of all market volume. But here's the real kicker if you're heavily into nearshoring. The Mexican corridor is currently running at a massive 45% premium over US domestic rates. Shippers without committed capacity agreements are just getting absolutely hammered right now. So looking at the forward intelligence, here's your strategy. Over the next 30 days, procurement teams have got to lock in volume commitments with their primary digital freight platforms. Seriously, if you stay dependent on spot rates, you're looking at another 10 to 15% hike as pre-peak season capacity tightens in Q3. Now looking out to 90 days, we actually do expect the Mexico corridor rates to stabilize slightly as new nearshoring infrastructure investments start to smooth out efficiency. But for right now, you have to recalculate your total cost of ownership. Let's shift to Section 3, Automotive, and the ongoing EV chip crisis. Just let this staggering number sink in for a second. 340%. EV chipset demand is currently outpacing global production capacity by 340% through 2026. Major foundries like Samsung and TSMC are completely 100% booked through 2027. There is literally no extra room. The harsh reality here is that automakers are actively losing their allocation priority to higher-margin AI data center customers. Because of this, OEMs are staring down terrifying 18 to 24-month lead times for advanced driver assistance and battery management processors. So what's the play? First, you need to map your dependencies to specific foundry nodes today. Instead of treating a 24-month allocation ceiling as just a worst-case assumption, you need to treat it as a hard cap on your output. Now, some companies are turning to second-tier foundries, but you have to validate those relentlessly for safety. A quality failure recall is going to cost you way more than any quick procurement savings.
Summarizing the auto forecast, the 30-day outlook is pretty grim. Expect to see multiple major OEMs publicly confirm EV model launch delays. There's just no short-term supply-side fix here. However, over the next 90 days, this 24-month backlog is going to force a massive structural response. You can definitely expect to see major automakers announce significant equity investments in their own dedicated foundry capacity by Q4, which is going to fundamentally shift the long-term manufacturing landscape.
All right, our final sector for today, Section 4, e-commerce, focusing on AI in the last mile.
The latest DHL 2026 e-commerce report makes this gap crystal clear. AI-powered route optimization is delivering a 15 to 20% reduction in urban delivery times. This absolutely proves that the operational gap between the winners and losers is widening every single quarter. Early adopters who are using intraday dynamic routing are seeing a dual return on investment. They get faster delivery and lower per delivery costs. Meanwhile, the operators clinging to traditional overnight batch routing are just bleeding margin.
Let's talk about why this matters directly to your bottom line. Every single failed first attempt delivery costs an average of $17 in redelivery expenses. That is a massive structural inefficiency. Machine learning and personalized delivery forecasting, they aren't just trendy tech gimmicks, they're actively destroying that $17 penalty by pushing first attempt success rates well past traditional industry benchmarks.
So for our e-commerce outlook, over the next 30 days, we predict enterprise procurement is going to rapidly shift to demand AI capabilities as an absolute baseline requirement. Within 90 days, this is going to become contractual. First attempt delivery success rates above 95% will become standard service level agreement mandates in premium fulfillment contracts. Honestly, if your logistics partner doesn't have a credible AI roadmap right now, they are about to become a major liability.
Which brings us to our conclusion, Section 5, Embracing the New Equilibrium.
Let's take a step back and pull all these threads together into our core thesis for today. The old normal? It is entirely gone. The supply chain system is not recovering to its pre-crisis state, it is actively building a new equilibrium. Whether we're talking about a permanent 30% floor on tariffs, autonomous trucks handling long-haul freight, AI completely dictating last-mile margins, or 24-month physical delays for automotive chips, this is the new baseline, and it's solidifying right now.
So I'll leave you with this final, critical question. The organizations aggressively adapting to these realities are widening their cost and operational advantages every single quarter. So, are you adapting your supply chain to this new equilibrium with a data-driven strategy? Are you sitting back, waiting for an old normal that will never return? Really think about that as you plan your next 30 to 90 days. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and remember, keep letting the data lead.